Hello and welcome back to Lopes on Movies. My name is Joey Lopes, and today I am joined by Connor.
Hey, Joey.
You know, your hays are getting longer with every episode.
I wanted to see if you comment on it.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were doing that bit waiting for me to say something.
I wasn't 100% sure if you were going to comment on it.
Nah, at this point, it bared being brought up. We're also joined by Kyle.
Hey.
See, now Kyle knows how to say hey. He knows how to not drag out an episode.
Short and sweet and to the point
of this show. Exactly, short, sweet.
Yeah, see, I think Kyle intentionally said hey as quickly as he could.
No, I've had this planned for weeks.
Yeah.
This was gonna be the episode where I do the really quick hey.
See, he's a professional, Connor. You could learn a lot from Kyle.
Sadly, the time we've wasted talking about this has really destroyed the point.
Anyway, welcome to the show. So we took off last week, and now we're back. And the interesting thing is that over the past couple of weeks, I feel like there's been like a couple of very interesting just kind of things going on in the movie world, just some interesting movie news. And so in lieu of doing a review about a movie this week, I kind of felt like it might be fun just to talk about some of the stuff that's going on. Because, man, it has been a strange couple of weeks, to put it simply. So, man, where should we even begin? I feel like there's so many good options.
Can we start with something good?
I mean, what would you define as good?
Okay, so David Lynch has brought back his daily weather reports, where you can get the weather in LA every single day.
Wow.
And he'll tell you what the sky looks like, and then he'll wish you to have a great day. And then you just start off your day like that, and it's wonderful. So
that sounds great.
No matter where you are in the country, you'll get LA's weather, and it's perfect. And
where can
I'm
you
not
find
kidding.
these weather reports?
It's on YouTube, and I believe that his Twitter account is David Lynch Theater, and it's great every single day.
Wow, that actually does sound great. I always wanted to know what LA's weather was like every morning.
And he'll tell you. Oh, this is the best part. He'll tell you what it is currently, and he'll tell it what's going to happen later in the day. And he'll tell you Fahrenheit and Celsius. So no matter where you are, you will understand what the weather is.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Moving on. So the next bit of movie news. So everybody loves Christopher Nolan, right?
Oh yeah, he's the best.
I mean, the guy makes some great movies. The guy makes some great movies, or at least some good movies. I mean, what's your favorite Christopher Nolan movie? Everybody, just to get a temperature of the room here.
Oh, The Dark Knight Rises, of course.
Okay.
That's the third one, right?
Yeah. What about you, Connor?
The Dark Knight is good. That trilogy's very strong. I think my favorite's probably Inception, actually.
You think it's Inception, huh?
Or maybe
Inception
actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm forgetting one that's very important. Dunkirk.
Ooh.
Yes.
I really like
Dunkirk.
I thought Dunkirk was really, really good.
Yeah.
I think Dunkirk's my favorite. Yeah.
It's gotten some a bit of a mixed reception, I feel like, from people
Really?
over time, but I really thought it was very well done. I think just going back in my brain, I haven't seen like a lot of Christopher Nolan movies in a really long time, but I remember thinking The Prestige was really interesting and fun.
That's right, he did that.
Obviously Memento was a pretty good time, but that's like way vintage.
Oh yeah.
But the point is, like, Christopher Nolan, like, for such a long time, that guy was of the big three directors. Christopher Nolan was like, Christopher Nolan, David Fincher, who's like another one of the guys that all the film bros would never shut up about. Tarantino, yeah, he's a good one.
That's a good one.
So he's still trucking, he's still making movies. And I think was Dunkirk the most recent Christopher Nolan movie?
It was.
Yes.
Wow, it's actually been a pretty long time. So he's got this new movie coming out called Tenet, right? Which is I actually have no idea what it's about. I don't know anything about it.
All I've seen is like the teaser trailers. I really know nothing.
I've maybe seen like a handful of teaser trailers, and I still have no idea what it is or what I'm supposed to get out of it. I think Robert Pattinson is in it. He's not the main character. He's just some guy.
Yeah.
But the point is, this movie was supposed to be like the first, like, but one of the big summer movies of this season, and then because of the coronavirus, there were some, complications and questions about whether or not it was going to get released. So it turns out that it seems like the movie is still on track to be released in July. July 17th, I believe, is the release date. But leading up to that point, you got to be thinking, if you're Christopher Nolan, you're like, I want to get people to see my trailer. I need people to see trailers for the movie. Like, I don't think up to this point there had really been any big trailers that had come out. It had just been like the teasers that people would see in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow the idea came to Christopher Nolan to premiere the latest trailer for Tenet in the video game Fortnite.
Yeah?
Does this make any sense to anybody? It didn't when I first heard it. I had to kind of look into it a little bit to get a bit of a better idea of what's going on here. Now, let me clarify. Like, I am somebody who plays a lot of video games, but I would never call myself a gamer because there's few worse things to be on this planet than a self-proclaimed gamer. I'm kidding, of course. I tell
your
jokes.
license plate says gamer.
But my point is, I play a lot of video games. I don't play Fortnite, so I don't really know much about what the bid is for how you premiere a movie trailer in Fortnite. But I think what happened, and I looked up some screenshots, I looked up some stuff from this. So there is a in-game theater inside of Fortnite. And the way it works is like, you're playing as your character and like your third-person viewpoint or whatever it is. And you're literally like outside in what looks kind of like a drive-in movie theater with like a screen and everything. And you're just watching the trailer on this screen that exists in the game world. Doesn't that sound insane?
That's definitely the best way to watch a trailer. I mean,
so I think I read an article about this. Apparently, Epic Games, the people that make Fortnite, they reached out to Christopher Nolan, and I think the thing that Nolan liked about it is that it kind of mimicked the experience of watching a movie in a theater with an audience, because you're with your Fortnite characters and friends that you're playing with, or anybody else that's around. They can all stand around this movie screen and watch this trailer. And apparently he liked it so much that he's even going to do a screening of one of his movies inside of Fortnite. Like one of his old movies, probably like The Dark Knight or something like that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine watching a whole movie inside of a video game?
No.
Like, what is going on?
No. Here's something else. Are gamers and film people really on the same wavelength? Are those
there's an overlap?
There's definitely an overlap, but I think Fortnite's kind of not necessarily the greatest game for this purpose, because Christopher Nolan makes, movies for adults, maybe not completely adults, but over the age of 8, whereas Fortnite tends to appeal primarily to a demographic of 8 to 12. So I don't know if do those kids even watch movies? Do they even know what a movie is? They certainly don't give a crap about Christopher Nolan.
I mean, they mainly watch Trolls World Tour, but besides that, I don't know.
It's true. That's true. So it just seems like a strange combination of things, But that's what's happening during this coronavirus time. We got absolutely ridiculous ideas like premiering a movie trailer in Fortnite that are becoming viable just because there are no theaters around. You gotta love to see it. In a weird way, it's kind of fascinating and awesome. And also,
I gotta think that this is some kind of brilliant idea by Christopher Nolan. Let me hear me out. So he's thinking, if these kids will go to the movies in their video game, maybe something in their mind will go, I kind of want to go to the movies to see movies.
Interesting thought.
I want to go to a theater. And he, obviously Christopher Nolan, loves the theater experience. And again, I think there are, if there's any director of the ones going today that you should see his movies in a theater, it's Christopher Nolan.
Sure.
Especially Dunkirk. Could you imagine that movie's great on its own, but the theater experience for that one, especially the way it's shot.
Yeah, seeing that in IMAX was a big deal.
Right. So I think that Christopher Nolan would lose a lot if the theater chains went away. I think it would really hurt. Like, it would hurt him, his soul.
It would.
You know?
It would. But it seems like a strange, like, pivot to be like, so like ardently supporting the theatrical experience, and then premiering your trailer in a video game. Those two things,
in
like
the theater, in the video game.
At least philosophically, those two things seem completely diametrically opposed. But hey, anything goes in 2020.
Yeah.
Speaking of anything going in 2020, so the Snyder Cut.
Hashtag release the Snyder Cut. Yeah.
Man,
That's what is that again? That was Batman v Superman, or is that Justice League?
no.
Justice
I
League,
think
sorry.
there is a
Justice
Snyder cut of that movie though.
Wait, what? But,
I could be very wrong, but I thought there was a Snyder cut of Batman v Superman.
well, yeah, because he's the director of Batman v Superman. The
but like I
original cut
thought there
is-
was like,
Oh,
isn't there like an extended version
an
or
actual
something like that?
like other director's cut of
Yeah, something
Batman
like
v
that.
Superman. Okay,
Right, so all we wanted was the Snyder Cut of Justice League.
Look. I need to give some clarification here for the listening public.
Yeah.
So if you remember, it felt like an eternity ago, but at some point a Justice League movie was made. And it was a sequel to the beloved film Batman v Superman, which itself was a sequel to the beloved film Man of Steel.
Great film.
Obviously, I'm being facetious. I think nobody liked any of those movies, except for a very, very small subset of DC Comics fanboy that was also intersecting with Zack Snyder fanboy, who were diehard fans of these films. 99.9% of people thought they were, a little lacking. But this small subset of people were absolutely diehard fans of this film franchise and were very excited for the sequel to Batman v Superman Justice League, which was going to unite all of these DC Comics films together in like an Avengers type of thing, whatever. At some point during the production of the Justice League film, the director Zack Snyder suffered a very, very bad family tragedy and had to step away from the production. And the producers of the Justice League movie brought in Joss Whedon, right, to finish the movie.
So.
Joss Whedon of Marvel fame.
Yes. And the end result was a Justice League movie that felt like it had two different visions pulling at each other and competing for dominance. Because obviously Zack Snyder is, say what you want about him. I'm not a big Zack Snyder guy, but the guy does have a unique artistic sensibility.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it.
It's definitely unique. Let me put it that way. Like, I don't think many people make movies like Zack Snyder for better or worse. Joss Whedon does not make movies like Zack Snyder, and I don't really think the producers of the DC Comics films really wanted Zack Snyder films anymore, if I'm being perfectly honest. It was no secret that Batman v Superman and Man of Steel were not particularly well received by mass audiences. And I think the producers of the movies, the Warner Bros. People, really wanted a more Avengers-like success. They wanted something more like Marvel, something that would appeal to a wider group of people than these very dark, gritty, kind of merciless and grungy and depressing superhero films that Zack Snyder was putting out. So that's kind of what I think they had Joss Whedon do. And the result was a Justice League movie that was just kind of like at odds with itself. It was trying to be jokey and funny like a Marvel movie, but also still had elements of the Zack Snyder dark, gritty style. And overall, it was just awful. And everybody forgot about it, and we moved on with our lives. Except for a very, very dedicated group of Zack Snyder / DC fanboys who insisted that there must be a cut of Justice League that preserved the movie as Zack Snyder intended. Now, never mind the fact that Zack Snyder left the production in the middle of the movie, so obviously he never got a finished cut. They don't want to hear that. That's not something that they're going to believe. The fact is, there has to be a real version of this movie, uncompromised, one that correctly shows the original director's vision. And for
hashtag release the Snyder Cut.
For years after the movie had come out, there were these fanboys demanding that Warner Brothers release the Snyder Cut. Just a couple of days ago, or like a week ago or something, they announced that the Snyder Cut of Justice League is going to be released on the new streaming service HBO Max sometime next year.
Yeah, about time. Let's go.
Of course, we need to make very clear that this is not the Snyder Cut of Justice League. This is a completely new thing that they're building out of the original footage. There was no Snyder Cut. They're creating a Snyder Cut to appease the fanboys and, try to, build off of the traction of that whole Snyder Cut idea and kind of the meme status that it got on the internet. So they are dumping millions and millions of dollars to have this footage recut, re-edited, adding additional CGI. I heard rumors that they're going to reintroduce characters that were in the script but never got actually made into the finished movie.
Oh my god.
This is a whole production. They even said that they might release it as a miniseries and not a movie.
Whoa.
No one cares. No one cares
How
about
dare you,
this.
Kyle? People care.
They're throwing $30+ million for a hacked filmmaker to make a version of a bad movie.
It's just interesting. That's all I can say. We're living in a world where, they're willing to drop millions and millions of dollars to recut a terrible movie to make it maybe slightly less bad, but still awful.
Like, do people just think he's gonna, work his magic and it's gonna be a good movie? Like, is that like the hope here? I guess
I don't understand how that's possible. The movie
it's
has
not.
been filmed. The movie exists. This is not something where they're starting from scratch to fix all of the production problems that they had. Like, those problems are never going to go away. It's going to be reflected in the finished footage. You're still going to have the terrible CGI lip of Superman because they had to, CGI out the guy's mustache because he refused to shave it for the production.
I mean, like, they're just going to be scenes where, like we were talking about this the other night, where, like, Martian Manhunter's in the scene, but no one acknowledges him.
Yeah,
like, he's just,
exactly.
Yeah, there's going to be some
he's just,
weird,
like, there?
CGI insertions that are just going to look... Oh, I don't know.
Like, I don't know how they can even do this. Like, I don't know what this could possibly look like. I feel like it's just gonna, like, turn into, because we're gamers. It's gonna be like the Final Fantasy VII remake, where they just turn it into this, like, it's just gonna be a new movie at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like 10 years down the road, it's just gonna be the real Justice League, and it's gonna still be bad.
I have to imagine that when this comes out, it is not going to even create a blip on the radar of pop culture. In the same way that Justice League just kind of evaporated from the public consciousness. And same thing with, like, things like Game of Thrones, just like, they just disappear as soon as they're done because people realize they ultimately weren't very good.
Yeah.
Oh, I just got a great idea.
Oh boy.
They make the George R.R. Martin cut of the final season of Game of Thrones.
Oh,
a couple years from now,
happen.
they take the footage, they throw in some CGI characters, they flip some of the script around, they have some characters re-record their lines to make them less terrible, and we get a new final season of Game of Thrones to try to salvage the very bad last season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you don't even hear anything about that was so bad it, like, killed Game of Thrones. Remember HBO had a plan of, like, 5 other new series spin-offs of Game of Thrones, and now you don't hear anything.
Yeah, I think it's all kind of
the only thing that would have captured back, like, the attention of this Snyder Cut is if there actually was a Snyder Cut and they could release it during this pandemic. But if they're just working on it now and it's not going to get released until next year, this is going to fade into total obscurity, and with real things that are coming out, because there's a lot of other movies that just got pushed until next year, and this will just fall away into the background.
It is true.
Hopefully.
And just to add on this, I don't know if you saw this, guys, but there's now, with the Snyder Cut being talked about, there's also a Ayers Cut being talked about for Suicide Squad.
Oh, I did see that. Oh, I forgot about that.
Because apparently now, if the movie didn't come out how you liked it, you can now just have a cut of your movie to hype up.
When are we going to get the Trank cut of Fantastic Four? That's what I want to know.
Release the Trank cut.
That's stand with Trank.
All right, guys. Well, we got one final thing to talk about on this episode. We only got a little bit of time left, so we'll make this quick. A very interesting news story came out recently about the Beatles film Yesterday. You remember Yesterday, guys? We reviewed it on the show, actually.
How could I forget?
I think I seem to remember thinking it was like, yeah, it's okay. It's just like a rom-com. It's it's got some Beatles stuff in it, pretty good. Interesting story. Apparently, Yesterday, even though it was credited as being solely written by the guy Richard Curtis, well known for his films Love Actually and About Time.
Don't say that.
As if he's well known for About Time. Oh man, bad movie. Richard Curtis is credited as the sole screenwriter, but it turns out the original script for Yesterday was written by this other guy. I think his name's Jack Barth. Is that right?
Jack Barth.
Jack Barth. And what happened was Jack Barth sold this script, and when Richard Curtis got a hold of it from somebody that he knew, he was like, "Oh, I want to make this movie." And Jack Barth, he got some money for selling the script, that's all great. And then next thing you know, very shortly before the movie starts getting publicized, it comes to Jack Barth's attention that, oh yeah, by the way, Richard Curtis is going to claim sole screenwriting credit, and you will not be talked about at all during the release of the movie. Your involvement will be made very, very limited. And suddenly this guy, Jack Barth, who came up with this idea, wrote this original script, sold his script, now was having to watch Richard Curtis go on TV and say that all I heard was a brief little glimpse of the idea, and then I just wrote the script from there. Which is very clearly not true based on what the similarities between the two scripts. They are very different, but there's specific events in both that it's not possible for both of them to have come up with independently. What do you think about this, guys? Is Richard Curtis just a massive jerk?
Yeah, so there's entire sections that are just, or plot points that are just lifted right from the original script. And it's a very interesting situation, I would say. Joey, do you recall what our issues were with Yesterday? I remember you had a big one that I remember.
What was it? I don't remember.
I'll tell you what it was. It was that you didn't understand or you didn't believe that would just having the Beatles songs actually mean instant overnight success the way it happened in Yesterday.
I was like, no, definitely not.
Right. And that apparently is the actual original script.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was about. It was about where this whole thing happens, yet, and the guy is, he's the same kind of thing where it's the lead character's not someone who's that particularly talented, I guess. He's just a struggling artist with a band. He's realized he's the only one that knows the Beatles songs, and then he tries to use them to become a star, and is realizing he can't, and it's not working. It never reaches those points. So it's a very different tone from the one that Richard Curtis readapted, which is, he gets the Beatles songs and instantly becomes the greatest living songwriter ever almost overnight, and it just changes everything. Right, and Ed Sheeran they throw in. Yeah, it's different, and I think this guy Jack Barth is pretty interesting too. So I believe I found his actual Twitter account, and he published his original script, which I'm interested to read, and it's definitely more the movie that I think we would have appreciated, but it's not something that they probably would be able to sell as much. But it's just there's a couple of scenes also that are is still in Richard Curtis's version that are definitely in Jack Barth's version.
So what you're saying is when Richard Curtis says that he was told the idea of the only one guy remembers the Beatles, and then he just disappeared to write the script on his own. That's just a big lie.
Well, so he even credits like some of the jokes, like the ending joke of the film was he credits to I think Sarah Silverman.
Oh, I
like,
did read that.
Like
that was so weird.
Which is like it's in his original script from years ago. How the film ends.
I think the other question that I had that I don't have a really good answer for, but you know we can make assumptions all we want. How often must this happen in Hollywood? Like I have to imagine this kind of stuff happens all of the time. But,
it has to.
But screenwriters just usually don't talk about it that much, or anybody that gets, you know, screwed out of money probably doesn't talk about it that much because, you know, ultimately the guy got paid a little bit for selling the script, right? And the movie got made, and he doesn't want to tank his connections in the industry by going on the record, you know, trashing a major filmmaker, right? So typically, like, people will just not come out and say these things because they want to toe the line and eventually, hopefully, work up to a position of power. But this guy Jack Barth apparently doesn't care. Like, he just is like, you know, this is kind of I've really got I feel like I got used here. So you know what, I'm gonna go on the record about this.
Yeah, I think the main thing was that he just like he was just happy that the film got made. I think is part of it, and he was probably kicking it around for a while. I think, and he was working on the idea. He's a big like idea guy, this Jack Barth, and he's written many things. He's been working in the industry forever, and I think it's good to point out that he's not a young man either. Mm-hmm. He's in his 60s. He's finally got his this is like a passion project film for him. He's worked on it forever, and then to see it just not be the same thing exactly that he wanted also, and it's missing like a lot of like parts that kind of like I think that took away from what it could have been. And I do want to read his original script because I think it's more online of what would be something more interesting. And I think he kind of notes in the article that the film kind of mirrors like his experience a lot of the way, where he's a writer. He might be pretty good, but he's not having this kind of overwhelming success or anything like that. And then Richard Curtis kind of took it the opposite direction, which is what he did.
Yeah.
He did have the overwhelming success from very early on in his career. Mm-hmm. So just having this kind of thing would just immediately propel you to the top, which is kind of how things went for Richard Curtis. Mm-hmm. So it's like an interesting dynamic. And I think the way he just saw that his film is, there's parts that are lifted right from his script that he's not getting credit for or acknowledged, or in jokes or parts are being attributed to other people entirely, or inspiration from it, and I think he just couldn't take it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's much easier to when you're doing a publicity tour to, you know, sell something funny by saying, oh yeah, Sarah Silverman wrote that joke. You know, it's another celebrity. You know, it's a name people recognize, and saying, oh yeah, this unknown 60-year-old guy Jack Barth, you know, wrote that joke. You know, that who cares, right? So I guess that was probably the motivation. It's just kind of like it makes you a little bit more skeptical of anything you hear in these you know, these press interviews and stuff leading up to movies. You know, you never know what's real. You never know what the actual situation is.
Yeah, they're just trying to sell their product to you.
Fascinating stuff. Not as interesting as Fortnite, though.
No.
You know. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Lopes on Movies. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of movie news. We'll hopefully be back next week with some future films or old films or more news, depending on how interesting the news cycle is over the next couple of days. But until that point, we will see you next time.